Well, welcome back here on the Digital Handshake podcast. I'm your host, Scott Jorgensen, and we're happy to be joined by Dr. Sarah Kennedy from the North Atlanta Plastic Surgery Group. They're based, obviously, in Atlanta. Welcome, Dr. Kennedy.
Thanks, Scott. I'm so excited to be here and chat with you tonight.
Well, first off, I think our audience would love to get to know you a little bit better. So just give us a little bit of background. Who's Dr. Kennedy?
So quick rundown, I'm a born Floridian, but then left Florida after high school, did some training in Nashville at Vanderbilt, went back to Florida for med school, and then did all of my plastic surgery training at University of Michigan, go blue. After that, I ended up moving back to Atlanta to join North Atlanta Plastic Surgery. And there's two of us. I focus a lot on aesthetic breast and body and, happy to be back in the Southeast.
Well, go blue back to you. That's my undergrad there at University of Michigan.
Way.
Yeah.
No way.
So
Well, go blue. It gets in your blood. You show up and you're like, what's Michigan? And you leave and, you're screaming go blue everywhere.
Well, being a kid from Southern California, I don't know how I found my way back at Ann Arbor, but it definitely thickened my blood, no question. Well, tell me more about the practice. So it sounds like you're operating in a larger group practice there in North Atlanta. I had a chance to review your website and your digital marketing. You guys are doing some really good, fun stuff. So tell us more about the practice itself.
Sure, absolutely. So it's me and one other, my senior partner, Dr. Amy Alderman. We do a lot of breast and body. So that's our focus, aesthetic breast and body only. And about a third of my practice has become complex breast revision. I loved breast. I love doing a lot of, making things bigger and making things smaller, depending on the patient's need. And so that's what I've really honed in on in the last 3 years since I've been in practice with her.
Well, being a sort of expert within, breast aesthetics, breast implant surgery, breast revision work, I got to imagine that, when patients come in to see you, part of their consultation, they're looking for education, they're looking for information, but they're also probably looking for a particular look or shape, right? Is there a particular popular celebrity these days that folks are coming in with a picture and say, I want to look like her?
Oh, 100%. The women I hear time and time again, Kylie Jenner, right? Everyone talks about Kylie Jenner. She also about a year and a half ago released her implant information, which a lot of celebrities don't do. So that took the digital media by storm, right? I have patients. I had one today, a consult today, who came in and said, I want the Kylie Jenner technique, which is great because that's what I do. Alex Earl, the influencer, she's a big one that comes up all the time. And so people are really liking, not necessarily big, but they like full, they like round, they like natural, but augmented. That's what I hear time and time again.
Yeah. So, what's your opinion on plastic surgeons that are trying to play across the middle between, sort of the zeitgeist of popularity of celebrities and aesthetics and plastic surgery, and then sort of the crossover to the everyday housewife that, aspires to be the Kylie Jenner or the Alex Earl? How are you trying to bridge that, if you will, for patients that are coming to see you?
Sure. So a lot of the time I'm focused on how not every breast is the same and not every body is the same. And a lot of these celebrities put so much more into their body, their look than just what their plastic surgery did. There's a wellness component, there's an exercise, a health, like a diet component, and they are so keyed into that. And so I try to separate that a little bit from the reality of your average person, right? And then I really, really, as soon as I hear them bring up a celebrity, I zone in on what they like about it. And then I flip it about them. So, okay, what do you have? What are we working with? What are your breast dimensions? And how are we going to get you as close to that look as we can?
Love that. Well, let's switch gears a little bit. Here on the Digital Handshake, really our objective is how do we help plastic surgeons make their first digital impression, right, their strongest asset? I know that you guys are doing some great things out there, both on social and your website and your own digital marketing. But share a little bit more about what you and Dr. Alderman are doing to stand out.
I think the number one thing, and I'm new, I'm a junior surgeon. I'm within the first 5-6 years of my practice, but I think what has been so successful for me is being genuine and being myself. At first, one of the early lessons I learned is that when I'm just being stale and kind of professional and too scripted,
Right.
patients weren't really into that. And now I've become, more of just, oh, I just did a cool case and I'm going to put a little video on about it. And people love that. They like to see who am I actually like? What do I actually do? And then my excitement for what I do comes across. So I think being genuine, being current, talking about what you're seeing, what you're doing now. And then the biggest thing for me is educating. I think there are lots of different ways that you can do digital media. And I think patients want to learn. And there's a lot of news out there. There's a lot of people talking about plastic surgery and they want to hear from the surgeon. And it's a bonus if they hear from the surgeon that they're going to see.
Well, let's spend a little bit more time talking about sort of specifically social media because it can be a bit controversial in that are we selling medicine, right?
Sure.
Or are we educating patients, which I think is the aspiration, or are we trying to chase followers and likes? For you in kind of your strategy, what's been your balance?
I think my balance, I never think about likes. I never think about shares. Truly, my personal account and my professional account, it just never crosses my mind. I don't have time to look at it, honestly. And so I'm not doing it for that reason. And I think if you are, it's going to come off as disingenuous. I think the most powerful things for me is educating the people who are about to meet me, right? So one of the things I hear time and time again are my patients love that they've seen videos of me, pictures of me with my family, videos of me explaining things before they meet me. And then they meet me and it's like, oh, it's you. Like it's you. I feel like I already know you. And, it takes off some of that pressure, some of that fear, right? It's nerve-wracking going and exposing your body to a surgeon. And so for them to feel like they kind of already know how my personality is, I think that has been such a hit and what I hear time and time again.
Well, let's play a little bit of a game because I think it's kind of fun for our audience here on the
Okay.
Digital Handshake. I'm going to give you 4 categories here. And these categories are related to how you, as a relatively young plastic surgeon in your career, would be building your online brand.
Okay.
So the categories would be you're a prolific publisher of data and science through clinical papers. You have a phenomenal social following. So you have a really great, call it Instagram account. You have the most amazing website, videos, education, basically the go-to source, if you will, within your community. When patients start searching for, say, breast augmentation or a procedure, they're finding you and they're basically seeing you as a trusted source. And then I would say lastly would be testimonials. You've done a really good job in curating a great collection and library of phenomenal testimonials. So with those 4 categories, which would you prioritize as 1, 2, 3, or 4?
Ooh, great question. Okay, the answer comes to me kind of quickly.
Good.
So I think 3 is most important to me because I think when people are Googling breast augmentation, breast lift, tummy tuck, I want to make sure that our practice is one of the top. Okay. I want patients seeing board certified surgeons, and I'd love it if they chose us. And I want our website to be current. I want them to see great before and after pictures and also link to videos where I'm talking about the most common operations, which is what we do. We have links to YouTube. You can hear all about labiaplasty, breast augmentation, breast lift before you even meet me to see if you're a candidate. Second, I would say number 4, patient testimonials are huge. Everyone tells me they read about me before they meet me, right? So every patient, good, bad, ugly, right? They're going to read about you. And so those testimonials are key. You can say you're great. You can tell them your awards. You can say where you trained. But if they can pull up Google and they see people who said she was nice, she was present, I love my results, there's nothing that's going to beat
That's why
that.
Amazon's so popular, right? We love to buy
Right?
the 5-star product. Yep.
Exactly. I Googled the sushi restaurant before I walk in, right?
Yep.
I read the reviews. That's just the society that we're in. The third, I would say, is the second, having a good social media presence. And then for me, the data, the science, the papers, the academic side of things is 4th for me. Which I'm sure may be different than what you hear, but that's my list. That's my list. It's important to me. It's how I make decisions in my practice and how I operate. But when it comes to recruiting patients, that would be 4th.
It sounds like you've got everything figured out, right? No?
Oh, no. This is a work in progress,
All
my
right, so
friend.
let's take a moment and just kind of chat about some mistakes, right? Because I think, hey, we're trying our best, but let's be honest, really good digital online marketing is kind of trial by error, right?
Absolutely.
Definitely iterating as we go. So, share with us some mistakes you've made. Whether you've spent some money on this or, hey, we did this and that didn't work out, anything that comes to mind.
I think the first mistake I made is trying to be too professional, too buttoned up, too serious with my online presence when I first started. I felt this need that, oh, I'm young, I'm new, I need to be super professional all the time. And it's not that I'm not professional, but it came across as disingenuous. I looked like a robot and I sounded like a robot and I sounded very coached. I didn't sound like someone who loved their job, who knew what they were talking about, who was excited about it. So that by far was my number one, I think, mistake when I go back and look at my early digital presence.
When I started this podcast, I remember having just sort of these like questions in my head that I would go through, and it felt more like an interview. And then I realized that it's better when it's just simply a conversation and kind of do a little bit of homework, a little bit of prep, and then, jump in and let's see where the conversation takes us. And I think that comes with one, experience, right? Two, confidence. And then I would say lastly is just trusting your own ability to be able to deliver, under the lights, if you will, right? So kind of you were talking about, meeting with patients and not feeling robotic, but really you kind of said, hey, that's not me.
Even making a simple switch, like having someone record me making a video versus me putting up a selfie cam and making a video, and just seeing the difference in my comfortability and how I look and how I speak. And then also what people like. Like people, I got more attention from the videos that were kind of like what we're doing right now,
Right.
as opposed to the like me sitting in a chair being like, hello, I'm Dr. Kennedy and I'm going to talk to you about mastopexy. Like, it's stale. It just comes off as stale.
Well, to wrap up, looking out I always think it's kind of fun to kind of look out a few years from now and see how the plastic surgery space is really evolving. I mean, it continues to grow. It just boggles my mind how it just continues to grow at double-digit rates year after year. It's just one of those industries that's insulated from, kind of more of these macro environments, or, people call it a luxury good, but I still think in downtimes people really care about how they look and feel. And so from that standpoint, is there an emerging trend that you're seeing in your practice, or something that is kind of sparked your interest that, wow, I didn't anticipate that, but sort of is definitely something you're keeping your eye on?
I think I mentioned earlier, I do a lot of breast revision, and something that I wasn't anticipating doing a lot of in practice was downsizing implants. And it might be based off of geographical location, right? But I do a lot of downsizing. I do a lot of downsizing with lifts. I'm using a lot of small volume implants. We hear people talk about the Pilates breast, the athletic breast, using yesterday I did a breast lift with a 130 cc implant,
Wow.
right? And that's just something you never thought I'd be doing, right? The first person who asked me about it, I was like, yeah, I'll try it, but I might need a bump up if it doesn't look great. Well, it looked great. And she's so happy. I took her from an A to a B, lifted, perky, small. And so I think that is a technique we're going to be seeing. I think doing more small volume, incorporating lifts in someone who may not necessarily need a lift in the old days. You put a 400 cc implant in, they don't need a lift, right? But that's not what they want. And so that's a trend I'm seeing in my practice. I'm seeing more and more patients coming to me because I do a lot of small volume work. And I think it's an exciting trend and I think it looks great. I would keep your eye on that. Keep your eye
Definitely,
on that.
definitely. And I love sort of the phrase ballerina
I
augmentation,
love it,
right?
right? Who doesn't want that?
That's so fun. Well, I want to thank you, Dr. Kennedy, for joining us here on the Digital
Thank you,
Handshake.
Scott.
I want to thank our sponsors, Media PSC, for making this possible. And we look forward to seeing you on our next episode.
Thank you so much. I loved being here and can't wait to see all the future stuff.